They laughed at him. They mocked his hoodie. They called him a thug. But what they didn't know was that the man they were making fun of was an undercover FBI agent. And he wasn't there for fun. He was there to expose them. What happened next shook the entire department. This is the story of how appearances can be deadly misleading, and how karma wears a badge. Darren Cole didn't look like a typical federal agent, and he loved that. At 6 feet 1 inch, athletic, and always dressed in simple, low-key clothes, he moved through the world quietly, confidently, and unnoticed. He knew what people thought when they saw him, especially when he wore his black hoodie and kept it himself. That made him the perfect man for the FBI's most sensitive cases. He wasn't always Agent Cole. He was once a kid from the east side of Detroit, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs to keep him in school and off the streets. Darren watched friends get profiled, arrested, even beaten, not for crimes, but for how they looked. Those memories didn't break him. They built him. He used them as fuel, studying criminal justice, excelling in the academy, and earning a top spot in the FBI's undercover operations division. He didn't just know the streets. He understood systems, injustice, and how abuse of power worked from the inside. So when anonymous complaints started coming in about a small-town police department abusing its authority, Darren was the FBI's first call. The department had a reputation: whispers of racism, selective enforcement, and intimidation tactics. But nothing stuck because no one would testify. The fear was too deep. The FBI needed someone who could go in without raising suspicion. Someone who wouldn't be seen as a threat. Someone who could blend in as just another guy the officers might ignore or underestimate. That's where Darren came in. His cover? A local civilian filing a complaint about police harassment. A nobody in a hoodie. Just a face in the crowd. But beneath that hoodie was a hidden camera. A wire. And a trained federal agent ready to blow the lid off the whole place. The mission wasn't without risk. If his identity were discovered, things could turn violent fast. But Darren knew what was at stake. Not just justice, but the message it would send, that no one, not even those with badges, are above the law. He wasn't just undercover. He was on a mission. A mission to expose what happens when the people sworn to protect turn into the very threat communities fear most. And it all began the moment he walked into the station, coffee in hand, hoodie up, and truth on his side. The police station was quiet when Darren Cole walked in. The kind of quiet that feels heavy, like everyone's watching, but no one says a word. He stepped through the front doors slowly, holding a paper cup of coffee in one hand, a sealed envelope in the other. He kept his hoodie up. He wasn't hiding. He was observing. Behind the main desk were 3 officers, mid-30s to 40s. Relaxed. Too relaxed. As Darren walked toward the reception area, their body language shifted. One leaned in to whisper something. The second burst into laughter. And then came the pointing. "Look what we got here," one officer chuckled, loud enough for Darren to hear. "Must be lost," said another, grinning. "Bet he's here to report someone looking at him funny." The third officer didn't laugh. He folded his arms and narrowed his eyes, sizing Darren up like a threat, or maybe just a nuisance. Darren said nothing. He handed the envelope to the front desk and asked, calmly, "Can I speak with someone about this? I was told to drop it off in person." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Complaint form?" Darren nodded. "Oh, you're one of those," the officer muttered, scanning the form. "We'll get to it eventually." They didn't ask his name. They didn't check the contents. To them, he wasn't a person, just another black man in a hoodie wasting their time. What they didn't know, the envelope contained a real complaint, signed and documented. And everything that was happening, their words, their reactions, their dismissiveness, was being recorded live through a tiny mic hidden in Darren's sleeve and a camera embedded in the button of his hoodie. Darren had been trained not to react. He'd seen it all before. But something about the open mockery, the lack of even basic respect, hit differently when he was face-to-face with it, and when he knew just how deep the rot ran. The mocking didn't stop there. As Darren turned to leave, one of the officers said, loud enough for everyone in the room, "Hey, you forgot your rap sheet." Laughter erupted. Another officer added, "Don't worry, we'll keep it on file. You'll be back." Darren didn't flinch. He didn't turn around. He just walked out slowly, sipping his coffee, heart pounding with every step. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He was focused, because now he had what he needed: proof. Real, undeniable proof that these officers didn't just have biases, they acted on them. Publicly, boldly, carelessly. And that arrogance? That was going to be their downfall. This wasn't just about a few words or a cruel joke. This was about power, and how easily it's abused when the people in charge think no one's watching. But someone was watching, and they had just mocked the wrong man. Once Darren Cole stepped out of that police station, the real work began. To most people in town, he was just another face, a quiet man in a hoodie who kept to himself. But behind the scenes, Darren was part of a full-scale federal investigation into this small-town police department, one with over 30 complaints in the last year alone, many involving young Black and Latino men. But every single complaint had something in common. They vanished, lost in paperwork, misfiled, closed due to lack of evidence. Until now, the FBI had been monitoring the department for months, following leads, collecting reports, interviewing victims who were too afraid to go public. But they needed something real, something on tape, someone inside. That someone was Darren. Each day, Darren returned to town, different outfits, different routines, different aliases. He spoke with shop owners who had seen customers harassed. He met parents whose kids were pulled over repeatedly just for walking home. He sat in community centers where people whispered stories but refused to speak on record. One story stuck with him: a 17-year-old named Marcus who was thrown on the ground during a traffic stop for looking nervous. No drugs, no weapons, just fear in his eyes. When his mother filed a complaint, the officer who assaulted him showed up on their porch a week later, smiling. That officer was one of the men who laughed at Darren on his first day. Every night, Darren would upload hours of recordings, officer conversations, station banter, even subtle threats. The arrogance was overwhelming. These weren't men hiding their actions. They were proud of them. He caught one officer bragging about teaching a punk a lesson by letting him sit handcuffed in the back of a hot squad car for 45 minutes. No charges, no arrest, just humiliation. Another officer admitted to turning off his body cam when things got rough, then laughing about it. No footage, no foul, he said. Every clip Darren recorded added weight to the case. But it also added something else: urgency. Because the deeper he went, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about a few bad apples. It was a culture, a system that protected its own, silenced outsiders, and punished anyone who asked questions. And yet, through all this, Darren stayed in character. Calm, quiet, watchful. He'd walk back into that station again and again, and every time they ignored him, mocked him, or brushed him off. Good. The more they underestimated him, the more they revealed their true selves. And Darren knew the end was coming. He had almost everything he needed. All that was left was the reveal. A week later, the town's community center was packed. A public forum had been called. Officially, it was a community police relations meeting, the kind they hosted after a string of bad press or to calm rising tensions. But this one was different. The FBI had worked with the mayor's office to arrange it, and the entire police department had been asked to attend. The room buzzed with quiet chatter. Local families sat shoulder to shoulder with activists, shopkeepers, and teachers. In the back stood the same 3 officers who had laughed at Darren Cole in the station lobby, relaxed, arms crossed, smirking like they were watching a rerun of an old sitcom. And then the lights dimmed. At the front of the room, a projector flickered on. The FBI special agent in charge took the microphone. What he said next made the room go completely silent. Over the last 6 months, the FBI has been conducting an undercover investigation into allegations of misconduct, profiling, and abuse by members of the local police department. Tonight, we will present some of that evidence. Click. The first audio clip played. Looks like someone's here for a warm bed and a free sandwich. Then laughter, sharp mocking. Gasps echoed through the audience. Click. Next clip. You forgot your rap sheet. More laughter. Click. Then came the footage, hidden camera video from Darren's hoodie. It showed officers disabling body cams, making crude jokes, belittling civilians, even encouraging each other to rough someone up when cameras weren't rolling. Then, the final slide. A photo appeared on the screen. Darren Cole, in full FBI tactical gear, standing beside a black SUV with the words Federal Agent visible across his vest. The room froze. Those three officers who mocked him, mouths open, faces pale. And then, a second photo. Darren, in the hoodie, sipping his coffee in their station. Same man, same eyes, very different position of power. At the back of the room, Darren stepped forward. He wasn't in disguise anymore. No hoodie, just a crisp blazer, FBI badge clipped to his belt. Calm, professional. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I came here not to judge you, he said quietly, addressing the department, but to listen. What I heard was worse than I expected, but what I saw was everything the community said, and more. One of the officers tried to leave. He was stopped at the door by other FBI agents. In the days that followed, 3 officers were suspended. 2 were charged with obstruction and falsifying records. Internal Affairs reopened every complaint that had been dismissed in the last 2 years. And Darren? He didn't ask for applause. He didn't give interviews. He just walked out of the building like he walked in, steady, silent, mission complete. But this time, no one laughed. In the weeks after the town hall reveal, everything changed. The police department went into full damage control mode. The chief, who had turned a blind eye to misconduct for years, was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Community trust, already fragile, was shattered. But for the first time in a long time, people weren't afraid to speak up. More than a dozen new complaints were filed, and this time, they weren't ignored. A special oversight team was assigned to re-examine old cases, many of which had been mysteriously closed. 1 officer resigned before charges could be filed. 2 others were indicted. The department began mandatory retraining, sensitivity courses, and even partnered with local civil rights groups to rebuild trust. But the truth was clear. The cleanup wouldn't happen overnight. Real change takes time. It takes accountability. And it takes people like Darren Cole, willing to walk into the fire when everyone else looks away. As for Darren, his job was done. He didn't stick around for the news coverage or public recognition. That was never why he did it. He returned to Washington quietly and filed his final report. Another mission completed. Another corrupt system exposed. But this one hit different. In his debrief, Darren wrote, "I wasn't surprised they laughed at me. I expected that. What shocked me was how easily they revealed who they truly were the moment they thought no one important was watching. They didn't see a man. They saw a stereotype, and that's why they failed. The story didn't just go viral online. It sparked real conversation. Local news outlets picked it up first, then national ones. People shared the footage across social media with hashtags like #HoodieToHero and #UndercoverJustice. Thousands commented about how it reminded them of times they were judged, profiled, or dismissed just for how they looked. Teachers used the story in classrooms. Police reform advocates cited it in policy proposals. Even members of Congress referenced the case in hearings on law enforcement accountability. But beyond the headlines, the most powerful change happened in that town. People started looking at things differently. Officers knew they were being watched, not just by cameras, but by a community that refused to stay silent. Parents felt safer letting their kids walk home. And young men who once believed the system would never protect them saw proof that sometimes, just sometimes, it could. All because one man in a hoodie didn't walk away. He walked in, and he stood tall, not with a badge on his chest, but with justice in his hands. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video to let others know. Truth always comes to light.